Yo, what's up? This is Jay Dennis, and we're back with another Ranked and Reviewed. And today we're going to be doing yet another titan of the golden age of metalcore, mid-2000s, and a big band from my childhood, especially like high school and stuff. And that is Shadows Fall. And I think this will be one of the last big golden age metalcore bands that I haven't quite done yet. But yeah, they got albums spanning from 1997 up until 2012, so they haven't done anything in a while. I think they've maybe done a reunion show or two, but looks like we are just dealing with those 7 albums here. Like I said, I've been listening to them quite a bit since I was 15, sophomore in high school. Listening to them with like Chimera, Killswitch, As I Lay Dying, Unearth, just all the metalcore bands, of course. And Shadows Fall, what sets them apart is Brian's got a little bit of a different vocal style, and even though a lot of metalcore bands do incorporate thrash into their music, especially like Unearth, Shadows Fall kind of definitely has more of that 80s thrash, and then a little bit of that 90s mellow death sound in some of their material as well. So from what I understood, they were able to garner fans from like the modern metalcore era and then like your more old school metalheads that were kind of like sticking their noses up. So Shadows Fall did a pretty good job of appealing to a wide range while staying true to their sound. But anyway, so been into this band for a long time. It was great getting back into them. And let's go ahead and get into it. I'm going to do least favorites to most favorite albums. And top it off with my top 10 songs from them. There are two-way ties here. Some of these are pretty close together in quality. Again, these guys have largely stayed consistent with their sound, so not the easiest band to rank, but also didn't have a super hard time either. So at the bottom spot, we have their first album, Sombra Eyes to the Sky. I actually never listened to this album up until recently. That's, again, the fun part about these ranked and reviewed is, listening to some albums I've never heard before from bands I used to love and still do. Sombra Eyes is easily their weakest album, though, which is weird to say because it's their only album that features a different vocalist, and that's Phil Labonte of All That Remains. But this was clearly well before Phil got really good. It's not terrible, but just really raw, really unrefined, really nothing exciting on this album. I think Lead Me Home's a pretty good instrumental. Suffered the Season's probably the best song on the album, but really nothing that exciting. Clean intro of the title track's actually pretty good, which is weird because also not just you had legendary metal vocalist Phil Labonte on here before he was a legend, you also had legendary metal producer Adam Duschwitz, however you say his last name, from Killswitch. That man has produced so many damn good albums, including other Shadows Fall albums, but back in 1997, I guess still a little unrefined, a little bit before they actually got really great. So the clean vocals on this album aren't particularly great. Like songs like Fleshhold, chorus is just kind of awkward there. And I think that's about it. Really nothing exciting to say about this album. We'll definitely never listen to it again. Next up at the number 6 spot. Wait. 2, 4, 6. Yeah, 6th spot is the follow-up album of One Blood from 2000. First album with Brian. This album's got a couple of re-releases from Sombra Eyes. I think it's actually 3 tracks total, and all 3 tracks sound much better on Of One Blood, whether it's the mixing or just the vocal performance. Like Fleshhold sounds way better. Revel in My Loss sounds better. And Two Ashes, yeah, all sound better on this album. But again, not really Shadows Fall's most refined work, so kind of just like a slight improvement, but not getting into the particularly great territory just yet. Aside from Two Ashes or Root Bond Apollo, probably won't listen to any of these tracks really ever again. Of One Blood is actually like 0.6 better. I gave Sombra Eyes like a 7.5, meaning like it's like a C album. Of One Blood's like a B-, so at least it's that much marginally better. But again, Not going to go back and listen to it, but, I can see how maybe some, like, old school fans would find some appeal to this if you like that more raw sound. Next up, we have a two-way tie, but I'm going to give the slight disadvantage to the number 5 spot. Retribution, from 2009. This was around the time I kind of fell off listening to Shadows Fall. 2009, I started listening to more like deathcore and post-hardcore. Didn't really listen to a whole lot of metalcore that I listened to back in high school because I had graduated. So I slept on Retribution for a long time. It's a solid album from front to back. But outside of A Public Execution and Picture Perfect, mostly just solid tracks. Nothing incredible, nothing weak. Probably an album that I could listen to from start to finish pretty easily, even though My Demise is like a freaking long-ass intro track. But Still I Rise is catchy. Taste of Fear is a great song, and then Dead and Gone is a pretty solid closer. But Retribution, another solid like metalcore album, Shadows, from Shadows Fall, but really nothing groundbreaking or unique here. So it kind of sits comfortably at the number 5 spot. But Retribution is certainly better than their first 2 albums. To cap off this two-way tie, at the number 4 spot, we have The Art of Balance, their third album from 2002. Now, this is, to me, when they really came out and started, definitely getting better. Instrumentals like Casting Shade and Prelude to a Disaster are awesome. Kind of reminds me of like Killswitch's End of Heartache, where the instrumentals definitely added a nice flow and a nice theme to the album. Art of Balance, I've never actually listened to the full album until recently, but songs like Destroyer of Senses, Fire in Babylon, and then there's another one. What is the other main single off of this album? Is it Thoughts Without Words? Yeah, just like 2 or 3 tracks of this album were on my iPod back in high school, but the rest of the album, not really. So songs I slept on were songs like Stepping Outside the Circle. That's probably the best song on the album. And then Thoughts Without Words. So yeah, I put this one slightly better than Retribution just because it was pretty groundbreaking for 2002. Still not a whole lot of catchiness on here. Still a lot of like heavy, kind of gruff sounding vocals on here, but you get a little bit more into the metalcore sound versus what you heard on the first 2 albums. So I definitely enjoy this sound more. It just kind of fell off a little bit on the second half for me. Not a whole lot to write home about. Welcome to the Machine is not exactly the best cover either, and I think that is part of the official release, so I counted that. And Idiot Box, just some songs are a little long and drawn out, and just don't particularly love them. But definitely a classic metalcore album worth listening to. Number 3 spot, we have their 2007 release, Threads of Life. Now, this is an album that I was definitely into when it came out, back when I was a sophomore/junior in high school. I had listened to this album so many times back then. I gave this one an 8.5 out of 10. It opens on such a solid note with Redemption, one of their biggest songs. Although I was never a big fan of how the solos sounded. I thought the mixing on the high end was just a little too shrill, and I just was kind of picky about them overusing certain like sweeping motions or what have you. So Redemption's still a great chorus, great song, but just kind of turned off by the solo a little bit. But Burning the Lives turns around and makes it a bit thrashier, does an even better solo, and has an even better chorus. So the album opens on a solid note. Another Hero Loss is a very sentimental and meaningful song to me. It's like one of their first real ballads. It's a beautiful song. Final Call is great. My favorite track off the album, aside from Burning the Lives, is Dread Uprising. I love the tremolo picking. I love the bridge, the solo. It's just a disgusting song. And then it closes on a solid note with Just Another Nightmare and Forevermore. So Threads of Life, number 4 spot, 8.5 out of 10. Definitely have some sentimental value there. They kind of got a little bit more melodic with this release, but it's still pretty heavy, still has its spots. And probably not a top tier album just because some of the songs are a little drawn out. But Threads of Life is overall a great Shadows Fall album and easily sits, in the top three. But before we get to the top two, which they're essentially tied, I want to give an honorable mention to an album that actually has a lot of meaning to me, and that is, I think it's from 2006, the Fallout from the War compilation album. Now, I didn't know that this was a compilation album. I thought this was a studio album. Back when I was in high school, it was Fallout from the War and Threads of Life. Those were the two albums that I had on my iPod. So I thought Fallout from the War was like, just a full Shadows Fall album. I didn't know that the last three tracks were all cover songs, but like, I guess you had some B-sides from The War Within on here, but just like the quality of a lot of these songs are incredible. So I'm putting the honorable mention here because I actually like Fallout from the War better than Threads of Life, but not better than the top two albums. So while it's not on the thumbnail, it's not on the graphic, I am going to mention it here because it's a fucking great album. In Effigy was the song that got me into them. My best friend had it as his MySpace song back then, and when I heard it, I just immediately fell in love and was just like, holy crap, this band's awesome. And then like the thrashiness of Will to Rebuild is awesome. I don't know why people don't speak highly of this album. I think it's great. Haunting Me Endlessly, there's just a lot of catchy, memorable guitar licks and hooks and riffs to start off most of these songs. The verse of Seize the Calm, and then of course my all-time favorite Shadows Fall song is on this album, and that's Dead World. Fucking love the song Dead World. The only reason why this compilation album probably wasn't my favorite was just because the final three tracks, the cover songs, aren't particularly my favorite. Kind of ended on a weaker note. First 8 tracks are solid though, but then the last 3 are just meh. Mark of the Squealer is pretty cool, but December and especially Tease and Please and I can kind of forget about. But yeah, let's get into the top two. So like I said, the top two are essentially tied, and if you're a Shadows Fall fan, you might be scratching your head based on what's left. But much like the band Unearth, I found that albums that I slept on impressed me far more than I thought they would, and I think that might have also happened with like Children of Bodom also. So be sure to go check out my other ranked videos to see which albums I might have slept on, or which albums you might have slept on. But I'm going to give the number 2 spot to The War Within, which is usually heralded as their best album. And for good reason. It opens with their biggest song, which is The Light That Blinds, which is a iconic metalcore Shadows Fall song. The consistency of this album from front to back is solid. It ends with another one of their best songs, Those Who Cannot Speak. And just listening to this album from front to back once or twice, it's very easy to do so. You got some high-quality tracks with Enlightened by the Cold, Act of Contrition, Stillness, another great track, Eternity is Within. But I don't know. Back in the day, the only song I had on my iPod, because again, I didn't have their full album, was Light That Blinds. I bought it on iTunes and I had it on my iPod. So to go back and actually listen to this album from front to back is pretty awesome. This is definitely the album where they definitely broke out in the year 2004, and definitely, I keep saying definitely, put themselves up there with the other elites of the metal scene at the time. So I think they predominantly play in like D standard. So, to play those metalcore riffs, but also have like that thrashy standard tuning, D standard, of course. I think there might have been a little bit of drop C action on this album, though. They just did it really well, and then Brian Ferrer, a lot more hooks and a lot more memorable choruses on here. I gave Inspiration on Demand a decent rating, but maybe what I'm trying to get at with this drawn-out statement is there are maybe certain parts of this album that are just a little bit overrated. The big singles, to me, are either What Drives the Weak and Act of Contrition, and of course Light That Blinds. But Inspiration on Demand is kind of forgettable, but it is still a solid song. So if I'm splitting hairs and telling you why it's just marginally not as good as the number 1 spot, it's because of things like that. That's what I'm trying to get at. But bookend effect, best tracks are the first and the last tracks, and then pretty much everything in between is pretty solid. Easily their best, one of their best compared to all the other ones before that. But in my professional opinion, their best album is their last album, Fire from the Sky. Now, I read some other opinions talking about this being like recycled or unimaginative. I completely disagree. I think this album completely like stomped on my balls, and you know, if you're going to kink shame me for what I'm about to say, then you can kindly exit this video. But I found Fire in the Sky from the Sky to be aptly titled. I feel like this is an album I absolutely slept on. Kind of reminded me of Unearth's, 2011 and 2014 releases, where in the 2010s, early 2010s, I wasn't listening to a whole lot of classic metalcore. And this is an album I definitely slept on. It is the easiest to listen to from front to back. It was produced by Adam D of Kill Switch. So much better than their first album. It just opens on such a solid note with The Unknown. I fucking love that chorus. It actually kind of got me through a difficult time recently, and kind of found myself, not the happiest memories, but making some somewhat meaningful ties to this album compared to The War Within. I love the classic metalcore sound of Divide and Conquer. They definitely re-embraced the drop C tuning on here, and it sounds great. Like, the engineering on this album is incredible. Fire from the Sky's got like a Chimera sound to it that I definitely love. The best tracks aside from Divide and Conquer are Blind Faith, Lost Within, and again, there's just no weak tracks on here. There's no songs on here where I'm just like, but there's nothing excellent either, except for maybe The Unknown. I fucking love that chorus. It just kind of, again, kept me going. The music video is awesome. I think it's the guitarist that sings the chorus there, and he sounds awesome. So, only marginally better, but Fire from the Sky was definitely an excellent high point, in my opinion, for Shadows Fall to end on. If they ever come back and release a new album, I would love that, but I didn't feel hesitant to make this video now. I don't think they have anything in the works at this time, so I just wanted to go back and give them some love. So let's recap real quick. From least favorite to most favorite, we got Sombra Eyes, Of One Blood, Retribution, The Art of Balance, Threads of Life, honorary mention to Fallout from the War, and then the top two albums are The War Within and then Fire from the Sky. I see other people put Retribution higher up or Fire at the Sky lower down. This is why it's fun to see different opinions. Top 10 tracks are Dread Uprising, The Unknown, Burning the Lives, Stillness, Active Contrition, Divide and Conquer, Lost Within, Those Who Cannot Speak, Light That Blinds, and of course, Dead World. So definitely comment. Don't make fun of me for saying the word definitely a lot. I haven't made a video in a while, so I'm getting back into the groove of it. Let me know what you agree or disagree with. If Shadows Fall is a band that you particularly like, how would you rank the albums differently? Do you have any songs that speak to you? Did I say anything that pissed you off? Did I say anything that really resonated with you? And yeah, again, let's just keep it all in good fun here. We're just talking metal, talking music. Be sure to subscribe and go to the Ranked and Reviewed playlist and check out all the other ones. I've done all the other major metalcore bands, Killswitch, As I Lay Dying, Unearth, and then quite a few others. So, yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace!